welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we're going to completely dismantle everything you thought you knew about staying motivated. Seriously, if you've ever struggled to get going on a project or, just hit a wall with your goals, you are absolutely going to want to pay close attention. Today, we're basically writing a brand new manual for your brain, and it's built entirely on the actual science of human drive.
So think about your own habits for a sec. If you constantly find yourself procrastinating, literally just sitting there waiting for that magical wave of inspiration to hit before you finally start a difficult task, well, I want you to know you're not alone. It's incredibly common. But the reality of how our brains actually work, it might completely surprise you.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The absolute biggest trap we fall into is believing that motivation is a prerequisite for action. We think, oh, first the spark arrives, and then I act, right? But the science shows the exact opposite. You have it completely backwards. Motivation is actually a byproduct of action. It's a wave that follows your behavior way more reliably than it ever precedes it.
Section 1. The Great Motivation Myth, where action precedes motivation. We're going to start by breaking down this massive misconception and exploring exactly why relying on your willpower and waiting for that spark is a total losing game.
The crucial concept we need to talk about here is behavioral activation. This is a core cognitive behavioral therapy skill, and it completely shifts the paradigm. It basically proves that action is what actually creates motivation. It's an outside-in approach. You don't sit around waiting to feel ready, you take a small, structured action, and boom, the feeling of motivation naturally follows.
And this perfectly illustrates why waiting for motivation is so destructive. It's known as the trap cycle, TRAP. So a trigger, like a stressful event, causes a response, which is usually these aversive, I don't want to do this feelings. So what do? We move to A, avoidance. We delay the task. But delaying it just makes the problem loom so much larger in your mind. This drains your energy, spikes your anxiety, and basically plunges you into a downward spiral of lower mood and even less motivation. It's a trap, literally. But here is exactly how we break that spiral. By simply swapping out avoidance for action, you move from the trap spiral to the track model. Trigger, response, action, coping. Even if that action is just, say, 5 minutes of work, the magic actually happens. 20 minutes into dragging yourself to the task cold, that feeling of wanting quietly shows up mid-task, as if it had literally just been waiting for you to start the whole time.
Section 2. Your brain's dopamine engine and the neurobiology of wanting. Now that we know we absolutely have to act first, let's look under the hood at the neurobiology of effort. This is where the chemistry of how to stay motivated really comes to life.
The mesolimbic pathway is absolutely critical here. We hear about dopamine all the time in pop culture, usually called the pleasure chemical, right? But actually, scratch that. It isn't the chemical of pleasure or liking something at all. It is the neuromodulator of wanting and anticipation. It's the exact chemical that prepares you to pursue things outside of yourself.
Now, there's this totally fascinating dynamic between two different types of dopamine signals. First, you've got tonic dopamine. That's your baseline, operating over hours or days, giving you your background energy and focus. Then you have phasic dopamine. These are the rapid, transient spikes when you anticipate a reward. Here's the kicker. If you suffer from chronic stress or pain, your tonic baseline drops, and that makes you desperate for high-reward phasic spikes, like scrolling your phone or grabbing junk food, just to escape the discomfort.
Furthermore, dopamine is literally the chemical precursor to adrenaline. It creates the actual metabolic substrate, the physical energy your body needs to take action. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Every single time you get a massive dopamine spike from something highly stimulating, your baseline inevitably crashes down below normal. That mirror image crash? That is exactly what we experience as a craving or a severe lack of motivation.
So to protect that crucial tonic baseline and stay motivated long-term, you actually need an intermittent reward schedule. See, if a reward is totally predictable and guaranteed every single time, your brain habituates. It gets bored and your dopamine response drops. So try this. Only celebrate your successes occasionally. Keep your brain guessing. It keeps your dopaminergic system sensitive and prevents those severe motivation-killing crashes.
Which brings us to Section 3, the psychology of drive, building intrinsic motivation. Moving away from brain chemistry into personal psychology, we need to understand what actually fulfills us on a deep, human level, so we aren't just relying on chemical spikes.
Enter self-determination theory, or SDT. This framework shows that genuine intrinsic drive only truly flourishes when our environments support three fundamental psychological needs. You've got autonomy, feeling like you're the author of your own choices. Competence, that feeling of mastery and growing your skills. And relatedness, our fundamental human drive for secure social connections. When even one of these is undermined, like if you feel micromanaged rather than autonomous, your motivation instantly shifts from internal passion to external obligation.
And this leads to a really crucial point. Heavy-handed external rewards or financial bonuses can actually backfire entirely. This is known as the over-justification effect. Think about it. If you start paying someone to do an activity they already find intrinsically fun, you shift their sense of autonomy. They start attributing their motivation to the money, completely undermining their natural internal drive once that reward stops.
Section 4. Re-engineering your goals. Inputs over outcomes. Because we now know that feeling overwhelmed crashes our motivation and violates that core psychological need for competence, we really need to completely re-engineer how we plan and set our targets. The sources use this brilliant anecdote about a musher facing the totally dreaded chore of trimming 200 toenails on their sled dogs. When they framed it as an avoidance goal, trimming to avoid split nails and injuries, it felt incredibly aversive. Lots of friction, heavily linked to procrastination. But by reframing this exact same task as an approach goal, taking action to approach optimum health for the dogs, it visibly reduced the mental friction and sparked forward momentum. Approach goals are just associated with far more happiness and drive.
And this perfectly highlights why you need process goals. Look, outcome goals are exciting, like closing 200K in revenue or winning a championship, but they rely on external factors you cannot directly control. Process goals, on the other hand, are 100% within your control. You can decide to send 10 cold emails every weekday, regardless of what the market does. Focusing on that controllable daily behavior prevents burnout and gives your brain that psychological competence it totally craves when obstacles pop up.
All right, Section 5. Environment beats willpower. Setting up for automatic success. For our final section, we're going to look at the ultimate motivation hack. Honestly, if you want to know how to stay motivated, the real secret is often bypassing willpower entirely. Consider this crazy stat for a second. Research from USC shows roughly 43% of our daily actions aren't conscious decisions at all. No way, right? Almost half of everything you do today is simply an automatic, habitual response to the environment around you.
It's basically mathematically impossible to out-willpower a bad environment. As the quote says, if your environment makes the unhealthy choice easy, you are going to lose. Think about it. A phone left in another room does infinitely more for your actual focus than an hour of stern resolve with that exact same phone sitting right next to your keyboard.
So how do we build this into an actionable toolkit? Well, you can spend your willpower just once by designing your space. Increase the friction for bad habits. Put the distracting thing literally out of reach. Decrease the friction for your goals by setting up your workspace so your intended task is the absolute path of least resistance. Change your digital defaults, like putting your phone in grayscale mode. Oh, and a huge pro tip, rotate your visual cues. Move your sticky notes every few days because after about 3 days, your brain habituates and they literally become invisible to you. So, I'll leave you with this question. What specific piece of friction are you going to remove from your environment today to make your success automatic? Because we've established that action creates motivation, I want you to leave this explainer and make one tiny friction-reducing change to your physical space right now. Seriously, don't wait for the spark. What is one object you can move or one default setting you can change today that will make your success automatic tomorrow? If manipulating just a few items on your desk can completely rewrite your brain's reward circuitry, imagine what redesigning your entire routine could do for your life.